Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Tech Shift F9 podcast, the podcast that talks about career transformation in the age of technology. And how do we do that? We do that by interviewing amazing professionals that share their stories on how they've gone about their careers. And I'm your host, Maurizio. And this week, I'm super excited about having Jasmine Goh as a guest. Hi, Jasmine. How are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm just really excited and what a pleasure. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, not at all. Jasmine, we were just talking of camera earlier, um, how I sort of came across your profile, and I found it extremely fascinating, and how you've been very open about talking about yourself and what you've gone through professionally and personally. So, Jasmine, you're currently the sales director at Asia Innovate Hub. You're in touch with a lot of the amazing speakers that come through with your company to help and inspire and build connections between startups and companies, particularly from the West into the East. You're based in Singapore, but you started back in the day in a finance job, in a fairly traditional, if I may say, a finance career. You had a bit of a straightforward career path. You studied business accounting too, right? So you basically loved numbers just like I do. But then you had a career break, and please share a little bit about that if you can.
I think my story ties in to, like what I really want to do, which is to empower, especially women, to think beyond, just gender and age. I am Singaporean. I'm 45 this year. I actually grew up always wanting to be a doctor.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so then I took biology all the way to pre-university, and then decided the last minute to apply for the accountancy degree in the top university of Singapore, just because I felt that it would be easier to get in because
Hmm.
med school is hard and it's expensive, and I don't think I wanted to cast that burden onto my parents. Um, I thought I would choose a more lucrative career, which is finance. And then so I became an accountant, an auditor in one of the big four. Um, had a family situation where my grandma was sick. And then she, because of that, decided to maybe take some time off and then jump into financial advisory, which is more flexible, where you kind of do self-employment, is your own business, you take care of your own timing, your clients. So then I had more time with grandma.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Subsequently I took a break also because I had children. So it's like a very typical Asian stereotype, right? For women, you get married, you have children, and then you stay at home and take care of them.
Right.
So yeah, that was what I did, at least for the first half.
And well, let's talk about that second half. After the break, you came back and became a national level athlete. That blows my mind. You represented Singapore on the international stage. I'd really love to hear your mental journey. And of course, how did you practically get yourself ready for such a challenging endeavor? And what
Yeah.
motivated to get there?
Well, first of all, obviously it didn't happen overnight. I was out of shape. Staying home with children. And I think a lot of women, we do that. We tend to put ourselves on a back burner.
Yes.
We stop taking care of ourselves. We take care of everyone but ourselves. And so I was out of shape, out of breath. I couldn't, do any sports. In fact, I was never a sports person growing up. I never did sports in school, never represented school. Uh, I never ran more than necessary. So when I after this the marriage obviously didn't work out. So after a very painful divorce, I made a conscious choice to transform and reinvent myself. So as part of going back to work, I had to obviously lose weight. Then I decided, I could um, start taking care of myself. And one of the ways is, get involved with sports, get involved in it. knowing people, being out there. And at the same time, it's a healthy hobby that will help me lose weight. So that's what I did. I decided to take up running, but I wanted to challenge myself further. So I told myself I have 4 months to run a marathon. So there was a marathon coming up in Singapore. There's usually one. It's like a huge event called Standard Chartered Marathon, Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon, and it happens every December. And I remember coming back to work, starting to run in July, which is my birthday, because it was like a birthday gift to myself, right, to reinvent
Right.
myself. Then I decided, why don't I also step up and then challenge myself, do a marathon in 4 months? So I started training for that. So I tell you this, some of the crazy stuff I did was, when the children, and I didn't have a lot of time, obviously, my children were very, very young. So there was one time I remember my children were sick. And I had to stay home and I didn't want to miss the workout. So I decided to run on the spot for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So running on the spot way before COVID, yeah,
Right. Right. So you're well prepared
which
when
became
COVID
a
hit.
thing during COVID.
That's right. That's right. But Jasmine, I understand the incredible challenge that you went through, but and I understand the motivations. I think that it's very clear and it's very inspiring. But how did you actually cope? Because clearly that initial few weeks must have been torture.
Was. I mean, I barely struggled. I mean, I'm no, sorry. I struggled, not barely struggled, but I
Right.
struggled. I struggled with every kilometer. I started my first run with 2.5 kilometer. And it was a pain. It was so painful. I was just asking myself, what did I get myself into? Right? I couldn't believe I made such a, a foolish attempt, a challenge to do it in 4 months to run a 42.195 kilometers in 4 months, and I could barely run 2.5. But I tell you, it's because when I look at my children, and I know I made a commitment, and I know that if I follow it through, I would be a role model for my kids. And both of them are girls. And I wanted them to see that I was strong and I became stronger even though I was going through challenges in life. So setbacks like that didn't make me lose, or doesn't I didn't let it define me, but I pick up new challenges and I'm all in.
I can see that
So
because
I yeah.
you didn't just ran a marathon, you ended up becoming an athlete. And so you took it to such a high level. And how did that part of the journey go? Did you ever think about it? Just happened by chance, or tell us about it.
So I was so SEA Games is actually the Southeast Asia Games where the ASEAN countries come together and have like a little um competition, right? Uh, what happened was 2015 was when Singapore hosted the can't remember the number, maybe the 28th Southeast Asia Games. And it happens every 2 years. So when they were here in 2015, I was supporting some of the athletes who were running the marathon, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to be able to run for my country. It was just a passing thought. I didn't think about that further until I was at the closing ceremony with my kids and just seeing the athletes coming out, displaying the flag and standing behind the national flag and the pole that says Singapore. And I was like just overwhelmed with pride. And I was just thinking, if they can, I can.
Oh,
And I turned to my children, as we were watching the closing ceremony, and I said, the next one, which is probably the 29th SEA Games, will be held in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So I told my kids I will be there, not as a spectator, but a participant.
and you got
So
there.
that's kind of set the stage for another challenge, right? I was thinking, well, I did it in 4 months. I keep from zero to a marathon in 4 months. So I have now 2 years. Well, not really 2 years. You have a year to kind of prep and you have to qualify for the race. So it's a you have to meet the selection criteria. And so I gave myself 1 year to do that. So I really got into the training. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, yes, it's tough. It's tough. It's if somebody says, athletes are a lucky bunch because they get to do what they love to do every day, please.
Mhm.
Even if you love running, if you're doing it every day hardcore at that level that I was doing, you climb onto bed painful, you wake up painful, you're just in pain 24/7. It's not fun. It's not fun. It takes a lot of mindset, right? That winner's mindset, I suppose, or the warrior mindset, or that mindset that you absolutely have to do it because you made a commitment. And I made a commitment to my children. I wanted them to come with me on this journey, see how mommy set a goal and achieve it. And I achieved the selection, the qualifying time within months after I set the goal.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
great. So,
yeah.
Jasmine, let's switch gears a little and talk about your experience as an entrepreneur. And now you're with Asia Innovate Hub. You support innovation, working with startups, new technologies, business models. First of all, how's it been so far? And did you plan this for a while to be more entrepreneurial with your career? Was it more of a spur of the moment decision?
I think you can tell from my story that I don't shy away from challenges. I just absolutely love challenging myself. So I got myself in a situation when, I got to know my co-founder and he was just sharing with me his vision. And I was completely blown away. Like his idea of how he wanted to build a platform and how this platform could unlock the ecosystems across the world. It just makes so much sense how we can democratize innovation, make it available to everyone. Um, I just fell in love with the story and I said, I have to get on, right? So yeah, got the skin in the game, rolling up my sleeves, doing all the hard work, despite not being a very tech person.
Right.
But I also believe that you don't have to be a tech person to appreciate innovation and appreciate transformation, business transformation. And we know, in today's rapid change, businesses are dealing with a lot, and innovation and transformation is necessary if you want to be alive, or do you want to have a sustainable business.
Totally. And you say in your own bio that staying up to date on the latest developments is essential in today's rapidly changing business environment. And I
Hmm.
completely agree. But how do you actually do it? And is your approach changed over the years?
Well, one of the things that we do at Asia Innovate Hub is that we have a speaker bureau license for Southeast Asia. So we are working very closely with our HQ, which is in South Africa. There are this amazing, amazing consultants and speakers, and every day just interacting with my speakers, you learn something. They are thought leaders, subject matter experts in technology. It could be in business strategy. There's always something to learn. And I think what's, at least personally for me, I love learning. It is important to keep reading, for example, always, uh, you know, take the proactive approach to find out what's happening um, in the leading edge technology or just stories around the world, the development around the world. One of the things that we want to do for the businesses that are with us, our clients, is that we give them a weekly newsletter. So the weekly newsletter would update them on the latest business information, strategy. We also give some insights from our speakers. So because our speaker network is global. So, bringing global solutions to local problems that's what we like to say. Yeah. So I think, yeah, that's, and part of what I do is I love networking, and I always go to, those conferences where they showcase leading edge technology. So it's fun. It's been a fun ride so far.
And in terms of financial services, you're still involved in that space. And I was wondering, since that's where I come from too, how do you see people in traditional finance adapting to new technologies and business models, particularly in Singapore, which to me is incredibly dynamic and highly, at the same time, though, highly regulated and a little bit conservative ecosystem?
Yeah. I also want to add that I also jumped into Web3 for a year because I wanted to learn about Web3 industry. And I say, you know what, I'll find a job there. And then I met a friend on a subway, on a train, and he's like, I'm hiring. I'm in the blockchain industry. And I'm like, pick me, take me, And then before I knew it, I was working for him for a year. So yeah, I think I have really this appetite for learning, and I really want to know about technology. And so back to your question, I feel that traditional finance, they are moving into, say, blockchain technology. That's one of the, and fintech, right? Just one of the space that I think is up and coming. And I'm really looking forward to what kind of products, I suppose, that could come out of it. I've been following what's happening in the US, some of the funds adding cryptocurrency into their portfolio. So that's exciting to see. In Singapore, I think people are still very cautious.
Right.
We have to move cautiously when it comes to blockchain technology and stuff like that. But I think even traditional finance, we're talking about, say, robo-advisor. I'm sure you know what's robo-advisor. There are platforms that came with a lot of hopes and then had to close.
Right.
Because I think people, especially maybe in Asian context, the need, when you do business is that human element that is missing when it's, over platforms and robo-advisors, and people are unsure. And it would be nice to have an advisor advising them. So I think that it's slower to pick up despite all the hopes and lots of money invested in platforms. Yeah. So there's still hope for, I suppose, people like me who are still serving clients because they still want to see me.
Of course, I think, I mean, personally, I see Singapore as actually a leading light of innovation in Southeast Asia. It's just that the general feel is still an Asian country, still somewhat conservative, very similar to Europe in my mind. I'm European, so I can sympathize. But in terms of, I mean, you've worked in Web3, of course, your long finance career, now you're in the innovation space. But particularly at Asia Innovate Hub, I think something that strikes me is you're now essentially dealing with people, all the advisors and the subject matter experts who come from very different backgrounds, right? Nationalities that have different skills. So you're probably exposed to a wider range of people than perhaps in your previous career in finance. And the simple question is, what was your perhaps most challenging part of ensuring effective communication across cultures, for example, with the people you're working with, and how to really make that work dynamic successful?
Yeah. I think I'm lucky because, in Singapore, we are multicultural. And then just different, you have different cultures here. It's like a melting pot. We are always taught, growing up that we need to be mindful of each other's religion, each other's culture. Every culture has got their nuances. Like you don't like Muslims. Sometimes Muslim men they don't shake hand, not because they are rude, but they just don't. Then or um, when you do business with Chinese, there's a lot of relationship building, and even across ASEAN, we're talking about so many different cultures. I mean, I'm sure in Europe may be the same, but here, just next door, Indonesia is different, Malaysia is different. Go up a bit more, Thai is different, Vietnam is different. So I think we are taught from very, very young, or at least exposed to a multicultural space, we are not we don't shy away, or we are more mindful and thoughtful. And so I think that helps in our communication and our ability to interact with different nationalities.
That makes a lot of sense. And Jasmine, as you've gone through your entrepreneurial experience, uh, what have you discovered about yourself, or perhaps about the actual experience itself, um, that perhaps was a little bit unexpected, or something that when you went into it you weren't really thinking about?
I think I'm absolutely fearless. And I do mean that from the bottom of my heart. Like I don't think I will shy away from any challenge. Like you can throw anything at me and I'll be like, let's go. Let's do it. Just because I've done so much in my life, and um I also believe that I'm not afraid of failure. I don't see failure as the end of the world. I see it as a stepping stone to something else, or it's a learning opportunity. So I don't shy away from problems or challenges. I also definitely don't shy away from failures. I mean, I failed in my life, right? I failed in my marriage, for example, but that took me further. That made me a national athlete. That gave me opportunities to explore different industries, which I probably wouldn't have if I be just stay home mom for the rest of my life. So yeah,
Very
it's
true.
yeah, just a perspective change, I suppose. Mindset. I just want to say that one of the things I always say is my favorite thing to say is show up as if you cannot lose.
I like that. I'm gonna use that if you don't mind.
I don't use it. And if you do that every day, I promise you, your life will change.
That's so true. And but you're not really, I mean, just beyond even just your, mommy duties, your work, you also in your spare time keep plugging away. I mean, you've set up a women running club, ex Trailblazers, I believe, in Singapore.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
can you share how doing this activity and more broadly, I guess, community focused work has helped your professional growth, or perhaps it's helped you in some other ways?
I think one should always give back, and I have learned so much from my learning journey, and so many people supported me when I was going through, from a stay-home mom to a national athlete. A lot of people followed my story, and a lot of people came up to me and say, "Wow, you've been an inspiration," and all that. So when COVID hit, I set up this trail running club because I wanted to help women get into nature. And I think a lot of women, they're scared to do that because they don't want to run alone, or that they have a fear of getting lost, or something happening to them in off road, and they're not comfortable, or they may feel helpless. So I set up this running club to kind of promote that off running as a group. I mean, obviously, we encourage men and women to join. So it's not really just a women running club, but still, it's been such a fruitful journey because you start seeing more and more women take up running and take up off-road running, which is trail running. And so I've made some of them convert. So some of them, from road, they became really good trail runners. And now they're doing ultras, which is anything
Oh,
more than
wow.
a marathon distance. Yeah. So
Gosh.
I'm really, really happy. Or rather, I always say running makes an ordinary woman like me do extraordinary things.
Yeah, I don't think you're very ordinary, but one last question for you, Jasmine. Looking ahead, what's on the horizon for Jasmine Goh?
Oh, Jasmine Goh, just keep hustling. I just hustle and hustle. Now with the startup, it's just a lot of work. It's your baby, right? Now you're just, incubating your baby, trying to get it out there. And we are doing amazing stuff. There's just so many things we want to do with the platform that we're building, other than the speaker business, of course. So, really looking forward once the platform is launched. One of the things also that I'm hoping to start is a women entrepreneurship program.
Right.
So leveraging on my story, leveraging on my, you know, mindset, I suppose, fearless mindset, I really want to come up with a program for women to encourage them to, take risk, be an entrepreneur, be a founder, or do something. If you have like a business idea in your mind, let's come together, provide a safe space for them to incubate and to discuss, and then, maybe find co-founders and then build a business and then change the world, right? Women should be the rising tide that lifts all boats. Yeah.
I so agree. It's Jasmine, it's been wonderful talking to you. I hope to get you back on the podcast in a while, maybe to hear an update on your journey. In the meantime, thank you so much for being a great guest.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Well, folks, that's all for this week. Stay cool, stay positive,